management model with how we work with students, really looking at the complexity of their needs, whether they need more regular contact with the team to really help them stay on track. And we've got various different models of support in place across our case management way of delivery. Some people don't need contact with the service regularly, and they normally can be serviced by anyone in the team, whereas some of our students with more complex needs need a one-on-one relationship with a disability advisor, and some of our students are working with participation assistants who provide weekly support with things like time management, organisation skills, task analysis, signposting to other services, and making sure they've got early access to support when complications arise. Last year we were supporting over 600 students, and last year was the first time we saw mental health as the number one reason for students to be registered with the service, and about half of the students registered living with mental health conditions were living with another condition as well. So often the two going hand in hand, which I'm sure many of you will be aware of. When one condition gets triggered, then there's an exacerbation of the other, and vice versa. So providing the kind of ongoing support with options, how to apply for extensions, how to defer exams, how to review your study load, how to withdraw, when's it appropriate to take a study break, referrals back to treating health professionals and specialists, and in some instances taking a big step back and making those decisions. Is this the right course for me? Do I need careers advice? Do I need to look at alternate pathways and early exit awards? So it's a very kind of dynamic team. Every day is different, and we really value kind of working in partnership with lots of different staff across the university to provide the kind of support that we can within the academic context of the education framework. Okay, I've stuck to 15 minutes. I'm hoping some of you have got questions or particular things that you want to ask while I'm here. I would just like to finish with referral information. We're really happy to have referrals from staff. You guys are often aware first up if there's an issue for a student related to a disability or a health condition. You may not have all of the answers up your sleeve as to what kind of support is available. So we're really happy to take referrals from staff. The best way to do that is to seek permission from the student that you can pass on their contact details and email through to the accessibility team, and that's accessibility@cqu.edu.au. We have the same phone number as the counselling team and the Indigenous Support Service, and our phone line is staffed Monday to Friday. So we're really happy to take phone inquiries or anonymous calls if a student's not feeling comfortable sharing personal details. I'll kind of shush up and open up to you guys if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask while we've got this little window today.
It's Lydia. Sorry, I was a few minutes late. My class went over. Apologies. But Natalie, do you ever see people or do people come to you, or would it be appropriate to send people to you who are having domestic violence as their issue at home?
Probably they would be best referred to the counselling team for that ongoing support, the emotional kind of support. That being said, we have worked with people that are living in DV situations. For us to connect with them, we work under the Disability Discrimination Act kind of framework. So there has to be a health condition or a mental health condition, which invariably there is. And I didn't mention at the beginning, but the other half of my portfolio is the scholarships team, and definitely making connections to that team for financial assistance. It's really important for people in those kind of situations.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. We do work with counselling closely, case managing a small cohort of students that need support from both services. And for people with really complex mental health conditions, often the counselling team will work with the students treating health professional as well, so that we can work together as a support team on appropriate, reasonable adjustments, and we stick very much onto the practical supports, and counselling do the therapeutic work.
Natalie? Sue here, sorry.
Hello, Sue.
I'm just interested in the point that you made with regards to assisting students during residentials. What sort of difficulties would you be referring to, and how do you support these students during that?
Yeah, it could be a number of different reasons. So students, for example, with hearing impairments may need some specific guidance about seating arrangements or equipment. Students presenting with anxiety may experience issues with practical task assessments in group settings. Sometimes we need to provide specific furniture or equipment. Sometimes the student might have mobility needs that we need to make sure are factored into the equation. There have been a couple of cases where students have required a note-taking support. I'm thinking more social work than nursing, and working closely with the unit coordinator about the appropriateness for a second person to come to those residential schools. Having those discussions about whether it's appropriate for res schools to be recorded, those kind of logistics to ensure a student has access to the information. We've had a couple of instances where res schools mandatory attendance, but for whatever reason the student's unable to physically be there, exploring those options and working closely with the school to see how we could redress that situation, or look at attendance on alternate dates. So those kind of situations. Does that help, Sue?
Yeah, it does. But obviously the referral and the approval and all that sort of stuff needs to have been completed before the residential.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. How long does that process take approximately?
It can depend on where we're at in the academic term. At the moment, wait times for appointments are 7 to 10 days for a student to have that consultation with a disability advisor. The turnaround time with the academic school and DDLT approval, it's normally 3 to 5 working days. For the more complex cases, it can be significantly longer if we're organising meetings and reviewing recommendations, but we would work closely with unit coordinators during that time if there's a need for any immediate support.
That's great, because often our residentials are in the first part of the semester. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no probs. Thanks, Sue. Great question.
I've got a question. It's Julie here. The participation assistants, I think it's the first time I've seen them this year. Can you explain a little bit more, when are they used and how they're used, please?
Yeah, of course, Julie. We've always had a team of participation assistants. Even before the INA team existed, counselling were dealing with disability support as well as counselling. So they are normally a casual team of staff. We tend to employ predominantly students, but we do have some staff who are no longer students or have graduated from somewhere else, but OTs, speech therapists, those kinds of support people. the aim of a participation assistant can really vary from student to student. We work on a funded model where we review goals and progress on a term-by-term basis. Predominantly, I would say students who are living with mental health conditions, so depression, anxiety, bipolar, those kind of conditions, and autistic students that may need support to transition into the environment and may need some more explicit communication and a bit more kind of coaching and mentoring about what does it mean to be a university student and how to connect with different services, modelling some of those online behaviours. This is how you connect with the Academic Learning Centre. This is how you go into Moodle. We tend to provide the support in a face-to-face capacity. We do have a few distance students that are working with participation assistants, and sometimes they can be involved in quite distinct tasks. We've had, for example, a participation assistant support a visually impaired student at a res school to support doing the practical components of assessment tasks, so that the student was able to participate, but obviously there was a health and safety risk if he wasn't supported, and it would be disadvantaging any group members for other students enrolled in the class to take on those roles. Does that help, Julie?
Yes, thanks. It's just the first time that plans have come across my desk that have had them in the last few months.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4.
Yeah. We employ, I think we've got about 20 casual staff in the PA role. In the TAFE side of things, participation assistants are more like teacher aides. They work in class and sometimes in groups. Yeah, but they provide a kind of mentoring, coaching type role. They are definitely not tutors, and they are definitely not counsellors. So we make sure there's some very specific parameters set there, and we work in a kind of goal setting model that the student takes a lead on to really direct what kind of support that they need. And often we find that participation assistants are only needed for an academic term or an academic year. The aim is to really support the student to become more independent with their skills as they progress through their studies.
I've got one more if there's no other questions. How do you evaluate your services? How do you know what you're doing is effective?
Oh, good question. We have an annual survey that goes out to registered students. We also look at tracking, now that we're using the Student One system, tracking academic progress on a term-by-term basis for students that are registered with the service, and looking at what does that mean. And once we started doing that, we realised that about 80% of our students are making significant academic progress. Distinction, high distinction level students. There is a smaller cohort, probably about 10 to 12% that are not, and we really need to connect more closely with those students to help them with the decisions that they're making and the approaches that they're applying to their studies. We're involved with the CQ Uni Predict pilot that should be coming online in term 2, and really looking forward to exploring that with how we can track progress and make earlier connections with those students that might be identified to be at risk. But we do I guess work from a rights-based perspective with students, and that also means making sure students know how to make complaints about the service. Fortunately, we've had very few, but they do happen, and there's there have been cases of disability discrimination that the universities had to respond to, not in my lifetime in the team, but there's always the odd one or two more difficult student that's got unrealistic expectations about what they think the university should be delivering on, and we have to work really closely with them to really outline what we mean by reasonable adjustments. And there have been cases where we've had to work with academic staff about what do we mean by unjustifiable hardship, and having to demonstrate the reasons why we can't make adjustments. So I think that will continue as we see more students with more complex needs coming through the university doors. And, you know, if inherent requirements actually gets out there to the student body, then I would imagine then we'll be having more of those technical conversations about what's possible and what's not, giving students choices. Yeah.
Hi Natalie, thank you for that. I joined the session a little bit late. I've had a couple of disability plans come across my desk in the undergrad program, and I'm in a bit of a bubble here. How many students do we have at the university that have disabilities and are on disability plans? And I guess are most students with a disability on a disability plan, or is there a bit of an untapped market there, or not market, but issue?
There's definitely an untapped market, Robert. I can tell you that from the outset, because not everyone discloses. We find probably about 50% of students who do disclose are registered with the service, and those numbers are increasing year on year. Last year we were supporting over 600 students. I haven't pulled the reports yet to see who's enrolled for term one now that census has passed, but we've been busy. I can tell you that much. The last couple of months, you know, having 20 to 30 students register a week, and as we've got a bit more established as a team, you know, the word of mouth definitely spreads. Referrals from academics, referrals from the library, referrals from the ALC, and making those connections to the service as early as possible when it's identified that there's an issue for a student as a result of disability or a health reason. But we don't know how many students are here with a disability or a health condition, because not everyone's comfortable disclosing that.
Thanks.
Hi, Robert and Natalie, it's Annabelle here. The other thing is, of course, that lots of students will seek help privately without disclosing to the university, so they may disclose to others and to their support system.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's hard. That's where the figures are hard to. Yeah. The data is hard to assess. But look, I just wondered, Natalie, I'm thinking about this in terms of the RHD students too, about whether there's any, and look, pardon me for my ignorance, because I'm not sure that this is available, but at the pressure points, you know, in a student's study life, you know, whether there's readily available or standard kind of mental health messages around, you know, around those stress points and things that students can do.
I'm not sure which bit to respond to first, Annabelle. Definitely, just on kind of disclosure, I would just say students that have had a really positive education experience before coming to CQU that are able to self-manage are, you know, significantly less likely to disclose until there's an issue and the university is not supporting them with their expectations. With regard to mental health messages, we would love to see more of that. That probably would come more so from the counselling team than from our area. Right. But we're really keen to see the wellness strategy that was launched last year come to life, and I think there's been a little pause on that while the new VC has been getting to know CQU, but we're really hoping there is a big push across everywhere, because it's so important to be providing that resilience. Studying is stressful regardless of whether you're living with a disability or a health condition, and I think everyone can get triggered at some point by the academic environment, and having an appropriate response on an organisational level would be great to see that in place.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to finish today's session because we call it just 30 minutes of your time, just so it's not a big onus for people, or not a big part of people's time to actually attend. So thank you so much, Nat, for coming along and sharing what you do with us. And I'm sure we've all learned a little bit about students use support and how we can better support them as well. So thank you again, and thanks everybody for attending, and I'll say goodbye. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Nat.